Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
Hello again. Before our reading, I just want to acknowledge the what Sister Stella called the blingiest, draggiest pulpit ever, and it's an honor and privilege to be up here in it today, left over from our gala last night, which was such a joy and so magical in every way. Thank you, Fran. Our reading today is a poem from Rainer Maria Rilke called "Go to the Limits of Your Longing." This version is translated by Joanna Macy. Listen, God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing, embody me, flare up like flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going, no feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You'll know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. I am obsessed with metaphors. Obsessed, really, a bit fanatical, if I'm going to be honest. Like many of you, I suspect, and I wonder sometimes if it's a particularly common affliction of Unitarian Universalists. I look for metaphors everywhere, like a huntress searching for spiritual food to feed herself and her flock, as a way to make sense of the world, to make sense of abstract or complicated ideas, or complex emotions, experiences, or concepts, making them easier to grasp and to cope with. Metaphors are a way to build bridges between what I think I know and what I don't yet know. See, there, I just used one. I'm imagining the distance between what I think I know and what I don't yet know as a bridge. Okay, this really helps me to make that particular existential crevasse feel a bit less frightening. I put a bridge over it. Especially now, as a student and a beginner attending divinity school in my third, walking into the wilderness of a new vocation, metaphors are very helpful. Divinity school can be a bit of a minefield of emotional and moral and spiritual awakening and confusion. Right there, two more metaphors. The wilderness and a minefield. Metaphors, they're everywhere. But my goodness, these two metaphors are a bit frightening even for me. While we might think of metaphors simply as poetic tools of language that we use to relay stories of our experience and to teach and to warn and to soothe, American cognitive linguist and philosopher George Lakoff reminds us in his seminal book, Metaphors We Live By, that metaphors aren't just pretty poetic words, though they certainly can be that. Metaphors are the very lens through which we perceive reality. And then, most essentially, they become the way we act out reality. Just as Annie Dillard tells us how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, George Lakoff tells us how we use metaphors is how we are wiring the magnificent and mysterious operating systems that are our brains. And will be naturally, as a result, how we show up in the world. According to Lakoff, our metaphors are so subtly woven into the way we think, we often don't even recognize them. They aren't just how we talk, they're how we behave. They're how we make meaning and direct our lives. Take, for instance, the metaphors I used a moment ago, that I'm walking in a wilderness toward my new vocation. The wilderness part makes sense for me. It's a common spiritual metaphor, and being from Colorado originally and being a hiker, I love the wilderness and found great solace and wisdom there. But yikes, a wilderness that, God forbid, is a minefield? I'm not sure where the image of a minefield came from exactly, but it does reflect somewhat the anxiety and vigilance I struggle with as I try to complete another semester chock full of deeply meaningful and difficult learning, with dangerous deadlines and heavy word counts and the treachery of one too many Chicago footnotes. What if I instead had described a wilderness of my wandering through divinity school as a wildflower meadow teeming with emotional and moral and spiritual energy instead? Note to self. Yes, we must use metaphors to help us describe and interpret the world, and we might have assumed them to be value neutral. But the deeper truth being revealed in this emerging field that George Lakoff's a part of is called embodied cognition, is that as we use metaphors, they work on us. They use us. We become their unwitting foot soldiers. Our faithful UU tradition centers love, another primal and poetic metaphor which reflects the core essentiality of love for our UU tradition. Love balanced at the center of a circle of values radiating out, centered in love, love at the center. Mohawk Indigenous midwife Guji Koch, in her beautiful book, Worlds Within Us, Wisdom and Resilience of Indigenous Women Elders, reminds us that we're dwelling in a universe made of circles, each balanced by the four directions, centered in love, love at the center. And this love at the center of our tradition sprouts from our universalist roots, our second U. The universalism at the heart of our UU tradition, like our first U, Unitarianism, has deep Christian roots. And tracing her history, we can see the love at the heart of universalism. Universalist theology has always been a fierce, unrelenting love at the edges of orthodoxy. Radical, heretical, wildly brave. We can see the first taproots of universalism springing from the emergent and radical transformative impulses of the early Jesus movement. The theology of universalism was a notion that proposed God's love was so powerful, so inexorable, that nothing could stop it. No sin, no separation, no evil, nothing. The conviction was that this love was so free and so relentless and so inevitable that in the end, all of God's children and every human soul would one day in some way return to God. That is, we would all be saved. Everyone in heaven, universal salvation. Since her earliest beginnings, universalism has been making good trouble. And as a result, she has fallen in and mostly out of favor over and over and over again with the Christian church fathers, forcing her to go into hiding, to go underground, to return to the soft, dark soil of near death, waiting, surviving, evolving, and then popping up again and again at various places and times in history, only to be exiled over and over again by the overlords of orthodoxy. When the theology and practice of universalism planted herself on the shores of America, she found a nurturing intellectual tolerance and religious freedom here. And so here she is, she's among us. she has survived. In the gorgeous words of UU prophet Mary Oliver, universalism has found salvation on the other side of the fires and the black river of loss. An evolved legacy that lives on in our tradition with the beating heart of the wildly generous, unconditional love of the original universalism. This is the fierce, inclusive UU love, the love at the center of our faith and the love centering our faith. Sturdy metaphors indeed. Metaphors that inform and infuse our promise to one another as UUs. A promise of love that is simple but not easy. I like to think of universalism as a faithful pilgrim. This fierce universalist love navigating the full catastrophe of the spiritual wilderness of the last two very storied millennia. Emerging and seeding the radical teachings of Rabbi Jesus, traveling through the early Jesus movement and through the tortures of Christian empire, being abandoned at every single Christian church council, hiding in monasteries and on papyri stored in vessels stashed away in caves, fleeing persecution, crossing oceans to new continents, partnering and separating, migrating, evolving, composting, sprouting. The art and spirit of universalism continues on her long and fierce and dangerous pilgrimage, surviving her journey through geography, politics, and religions. It's always a good moment to say, brava, universalism, brava. The opposite of this theology of universal salvation is particularism or exclusive salvation, which is, alas, a theology still doctrinally central in the Roman Catholic Church and many denominations of Protestantism. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says that the Catholic teachings, and I quote, affirm the existence of hell and its eternity. The Catechism also says, in hope, the Church prays for all men to be saved. In January 2024, on Italian television, Pope Francis was asked by the interviewer how he imagines hell. As he tiptoed outside the bounds of orthodoxy, Pope Francis gave a short response. What I'm going to say is not a dogma of faith, but my own personal view. I like to think of hell as empty. I hope it is. I like to think of hell as empty. I hope it is. What a wonderful thought, and what a gorgeous hope. Of course, Catholic Church officials were quick to scurry to the microphones to clarify and differentiate the notion of universal salvation as a hope and universal salvation as a doctrine, but Pope Francis could not unsay his personal hope for universal salvation. For a loving God so generous after all this time that hell is empty. Blessedly, our UU faith is not one of doctrine or creed, but rather we make a covenant together, focused on holding values and keeping promises to one another, to ourselves, to each other, to the whole world, and to creation itself. Thoughts about the afterlife may be far from our minds, but most of us, I think it's safe to say, would hope that hell is empty too. At the heart of our second U of universalism is the promise of a love so radical, fierce, and inclusive that it has traveled through hell and high water, pun intended, to reach us and bless us, and to equip us to bear the full catastrophe of our present days. In his book about mindfulness-based stress reduction meditation, John Kabat-Zinn uses the term full catastrophe to describe the whole of human life, its inevitable challenges, struggles, and unpredictabilities. To describe our time, 2025, as a time with challenges, struggles, and unpredictabilities seems almost like a quaint understatement. But full catastrophe works. We will not navigate our full catastrophe days, present and future, without practicing the discipline of a full catastrophe love. This is the radical, fierce, inclusive, full catastrophe love at the center of our faith that has arms big enough to bring everyone and everything into its warm embrace. And this is the radical, fierce, inclusive, full catastrophe love that centers us and gives us strength and courage for the journey. Fully, unconditionally, no questions asked, no hooks, lines, or sinkers. In our reading today, Rainer Maria Rilke, another UU prophet, tells us to listen to this love, to listen for this love in ourselves as our longings. Another metaphor, love as the voice of creation, the love that called us here, and the love that walks quietly and steadily with us, filling us with desires and longings, and then urging us on to the very limits of the full catastrophe of our longings, the beauty of them and the terror of them, all of it. Make no mistake, beloveds, listening to this voice, the voice of creation in our longings, is difficult work, drowned out, as she usually is, by the clang and clatter of our full catastrophe culture and the jarring judgments that talk over every loving thing she tries to whisper to us. Our work is to listen for this love, the voice of creation, and to turn toward her as we turn toward our longings, flaring them up, taking the country called life seriously and never giving up. As Unitarian Universalists, let's practice the discipline of universalism, this full catastrophe love, by first remembering our own belovedness and then embodying that belovedness in everything we touch, everything we love, and everything we do. Let's imagine ourselves as megaphones for this dim, enduring voice of creation, centering our tradition. At the center of our promise to one another, the voice of unconditional, generous, and life-giving love. Love at the center of our faith, and love centering our faith. Sturdy metaphors indeed, ones we can certainly trust to accompany us through the full catastrophe days ahead. But we can't do this alone. Give me your hand, and I'll give you mine. May it be so. May we make it so. Amen. Beloved spiritual companions, as we prepare to return to the clang and clatter of our culture, beyond the safety of the circle that is this Arlington Street community, may we take with us some provisions for the full catastrophe road ahead. Let's take with us the reliability of metaphor, well used to add stability and delight to our language, for inspiration and good habits. Let's take with us a steady love for ourselves. Every last lonely part, even the hurt, the dented, the broken, and the unfinished bits, so that we will be steady at the center of our lives. Let's take with us a fierce and foolish love for the other, expanding the circle to love the friends and enemies we know and the strangers we do not yet know. Let us take with us a curious, reverent, wonder-filled love for creation, herself, mysterious, magnificent Mother Nature, and the clouds and the cosmos that surround us. May we leave here infused with this irreverently reverent love. From the heart of our tradition, the love that radiates out from the self to the other to creation itself. This is the radically inclusive love of our brave, enduring, evolving, resilient tradition. A love so big and so generous that it can handle the full catastrophe of our broken, beautiful, hurting, heartwarming world. Love is the spirit of this congregation. May love hold us all until we meet again. Let us keep this faith, beloveds, and pass it on. The service begins when the service ends. I love you. Amen.
I love you too.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.